I don't think I could ever be a normal mom without having to think about the department. I'm walking on eggshells, and I don't think that's how you're supposed to live, as a parent.
What DCFS doesn't realize is that when they take these children from their parents, they're not just separating the child from the parent, they're separating the parent from the child. It's trauma on both ends.
It was scary because I didn't know how to react to it. They're kidnapping my son. That's the way I looked at it.
The primary reason for child welfare involvement is neglect. Which is a broad, very amorphously defined concept that basically conflates with poverty and these conditions that are related to poverty, such as homelessness, right? Such as lack of access to childcare, such as food insecurity. All these things are being criminalized, right, by a system that does not provide the solutions to those conditions, but rather takes families through an entire court process of prosecution that oftentimes leads to trauma, disruption, and actual destruction of family ties.
I love you.
Thank you. I love you too. All right, you gonna have a good day? All right, high five. All right.
My life before DCFS involvement was great. Every day was full of laughter and definitely loudness. We would do our turn-up hour and then we would dance and we sing and have a bunch of little party turn-up really quick before bed. Whee! DCFS asked me to drug test, and I tested positive for marijuana, of course, because I use it medicinally. And at that time, the judge said, we're gonna make the children ward of the state, but they'll stay in your care.
Are you excited to see your kids?
Yeah.
How do you feel every Thursday when you're gonna see them?
I'm usually happy and sad at the same time.
Court-ordered supervision, or sometimes called family maintenance, is a very invasive and very intrusive government intervention into the privacy of the family.
One likes talkies. The social worker was making me upset because she would pop up at my kid's school. She would pop up at my house and I'd be in the middle of cooking dinner and she'd be like, can you turn the dinner off? I started to get frustrated. You're coming here every 2 weeks. You're stopping my day. Now you want to do a walkthrough. You want me to undress the kids. You want to take my children in the rooms, interrogate them, and ask them very inappropriate questions. That is very, very inappropriate.
If you're looking for a reason to say there's some risk, if you keep looking, you could probably find something in any family. They can take note of many small things, and there's just so much discretion for the caseworker to come in and decide.
For me, it's defamation of character, because in those reports, when I read them, it feels like I'm reading a story about someone else. When they come to your house, they perceive you as a people, not as an individual. You're Eleanor, you're Black. You must have problems and you need our help. Because best believe, if you've got money, DCFS won't knock on your door because you just hand them a card to your lawyer. You've got that whole day of November 1st, right? I sent my kids to school in their Halloween costumes. 3 o'clock when I went to pick up my kids from the bus, they didn't get off. I will never forget that feeling, because I knew then that they took my kids without me knowing. No one called me to tell me they took my children from me. No one gave me a paperwork, no one gave me a warrant, no one gave me anything.
When the police and the ambulance got to my home, the father was gone. I met initially with a DCF investigator who questioned me, asked me what happened. From there on, a lot of it is a blur because it was so traumatizing. Within the week, I had already lost custody of the kids, and I wasn't allowed to go back to the hospital to see my son. So once the court took temporary custody, the kids were placed into the foster system.
The legal removal from her care happened while she was at the hospital and without a full discussion of what it was.
Nobody explained to me anything of the order of temporary custody. Nobody explained to me the petition to terminate my parental rights.
And remember, she didn't have a lawyer yet at that point. So in those moments, the parent really has no leverage, no ability to negotiate, and no one to tell them, other than the agency, what's going on and what are the variables.
I love you and have a good day. I love you more.
DCF was aware of us because I had a prior case, which I didn't reunify with my children, and Adrian tested positive for drugs from his parole officer.
Supposedly.
Automatically, they assumed that I was dirty, and that led to the removal of Maximus. That's all they needed. They said it was the allegation of neglect, so they just painted a picture of their own. At the beginning, we only got to see him, twice a week? Go to the camera. You're so cute. Our son is getting closer to this other family, and because we're not seeing him as often and as much.
Tickle butt? He was more quiet. Like when we had visits,
he was more closed off.
He wasn't playful with us, though. He wasn't playful with us like he was the foster family.
My oldest is the one that gets hit the hardest. His trauma is behavioral, emotionally, anxiety. He suffers from PTSD.
They're not protecting our children. They're just giving our children to random people and expecting them to care about our kids the same way we do.
September 29th, 2022. Color for today is brown. Boy is...
They assigned us requirements to do in order to get Max back. Individual therapy sessions, parenting classes, substance abuse classes, along with random color testing. So today is brown, meaning anybody who was assigned the color brown has to go and do their P test for drugs. Yeah. Today's not our color though. Mine's pink and Adrian's is red.
I completed all my steps before my 6 months. So what you want me to do, double of everything? I finished it already. I did what I was supposed to. And they still held on to my kids for 3 years.
Often these service plans really have nothing to do with either the issues that brought the family into the system or with their needs or their desires or anything that will benefit them.
They never ask you what actually helps you.
The thing is, you're never quite free from them. A poor parent exists in a web of surveillance and expectation and lack.
The system spends about 10 times more on investigation, separation, and terminating children's rights and adoption than it does on so-called preventive services that would be accessible for parents to avoid having to come into the child welfare system.
After your rights are terminated, and then they give you one final visit. And when you think about like a final visit with your 4-year-old, your 3-year-old, it's a really long time. It's a really long time for them to be 18.
There's something completely wrong with their structure of how they go about determining on if a child is really being neglected or if a parent just needs some type of guidance, needs some therapy, needs some help for the substance abuse class, or needs somebody just to talk to because they're depressed. And we're off, Max.
We already know that poverty is the main driver. Put that money into communities. We know the zip codes. We know what the conditions of those communities are.
As far as what my children have endured in these past 3 years, it's gonna be a huge adjustment. Them ain't the same kids. Those are traumatized children. Those are children that have been through something. I feel like I'd be the best person to fix all those problems. Would it be easy? No. It's gonna be a hellified road. Am I ready for it? Yes. Am I willing to take it on? 100%. I gave birth to all those kids, and I would give my life for all those kids.